Hello friends, welcome to Shah's IAS Institute. This is our website www.ashah.com. We upload current affairs here on a daily basis. So here you can see for the month of July, we start off today. So here in the current affairs is uploaded in this format. We have the news, the keywords, editorial, question bank, and then we give you a complete PDF of all these items in a downloadable format. So here the news is what we'll be going to be discussing in detail. What is the keywords is actually this initiative in which we are putting up all the important terminologies which come up in news in a gist format. So here you GST. So to know everything about GST, you have to go through this. So it gives you the gist of the term. So terms are generally important, be it for prelims or mains. So whatever a question is asked is of a particular issue, a particular topic. Even in prelims, it becomes very significant. So you are aware of all important things like GST Council. What is it all about? What does it comprise of? How do they vote? Everything is detailed out. The third, you see GST network, GST Suvidha providers. So these have been coming in news and these will overlap. So once you start off with this initiative and look at all these terminologies again and again, then you will be seeing that current affairs becomes very simple because these are the same terminologies which will be coming up in news again and again. So you should be thorough with these. So you have to go through this. So these are all the terminologies which are there relevant in today's newspaper, in today's news items which we are going to discuss. So they are covered up here, right? So while we are discussing the news, we are going to discuss all these topics also. And this is the gist given together because news items you go through is a different matter, but these will be handy at any point of time. So these are like the notes prepared out of that. Then this is the editorial. So the two editorials in the Hindu newspaper are put up here. A few points are highlighted for you to have a quick read. And this is the question bank initiative. So in this, the lead article and the op-ed articles which are there in the Hindu newspaper, if they are relevant, then a question is framed. Sometimes on the same issue, there are articles coming often. So you don't need to go through every one of them. When you have sufficient information gathered for a particular issue, sufficient points to write an answer, you can stop. So for GST, again, the today's lead article is on GST, but we have covered GST quite in detail. So this is actually a repeat question from 24th May question bank, and it gives you much more better comprehensive coverage of all the points. So this is there. And the second article which is there in today's paper, that is on reforms in parliament. So this also, the gist of it and all the key points on which the issues are covered in that article are covered up here. So this is the question bank initiative. Right now we'll start off with the news. So looking at the important headlines from the Hindu newspaper for 1st of July. So the news items picked up are these 19. We'll look at them in detail. One more thing which I would like to clarify is that we are not covering up PIB news. PIB is Press Information Bureau, which has become the buzzword now after prelims 2017. So there have been few questions in the question paper which were exclusively from PIB. So they were not covered up in the standard newspapers as such. But then these questions, if you restrict them, they are around 5 to 7. So for such questions which are not covered in standard news, so if for such questions you're going to prepare PIB on a daily basis and pick up those static information and add up to your news items daily over the year for 365 days, you will have so much amount of information, extra information just for those 5 questions, 5 to 7 questions. So rather it is better, advisable to leave off those questions rather than run after something which will become too much and cumbersome. And again, another thing is that current affairs is dicey. In UPSC prelims, they may or may not ask current affairs. Like if you look at 2 years back question paper, there were very minimal questions from current affairs, directly from current affairs. So that way, current affairs is having some lesser weightage in prelims, but it is very much important for mains and of course for your interview. And in current affairs, the kind of coverage which we are doing, we are not looking only at current affairs. We go back to the static part too and try to understand that. That will help you a lot in prelims also. So that is why though there were not many questions from current affairs in prelims 2017, from our coverage, there were around 35 questions from current affairs, including a question on culture also. So the kind of coverage and the background information which is given here is trying to deal with those aspects, right? So starting off with the current affairs without much delay now. So the first news item picked up is at the stroke of midnight, India gets a good and simple tax. So this is how Prime Minister Narendra Modi has described GST. It is a good and simple tax. So he is calling it not just a tax or economic reform, but a social reform. So this will nudge people to become honest. He says there will be no kacha informal bills given anymore. As such is what is expected. It is going to bring in a modern, simple and more transparent taxation system in the country. It would end tax terrorism. So you can see there are so many points which you are getting here for writing an answer also. So the benefits of GST here. So end the specter of tax terrorism and Inspector Raj. And this is because there is a technological backing for GST implementation. So what is implied here is the GST network. When you're putting in all the information on the IT infrastructure, there is no Inspector Raj tax terrorism where tax inspectors can come up and make claims. So there's all transparency up here. So that is there. Also President Pranab Mukherjee, who inaugurated GST, he's also spoken on the matter, and he was the one when he was the finance minister that he had introduced this constitutional amendment bill to implement GST in 2011. So of course this is history, it's not important now. But yes, another thing which is mentioned is that the GST Council, just before introducing GST now, one change which it has made. So GST Council, you should remember, comprises of all state representatives. State finance minister, for that matter, are represented here, and it is chaired by finance minister Mr. Arun Jaitley. So it decided to slash the taxation rate for fertilizers. So now fertilizers taxation rate is not 12% but 5%. Even for tractor parts, it has brought down from 28 to 18%. So this is just hours before the launch of GST that this change was also put into effect. And only one state which has not passed the GST law. So central GST, state GST acts, all are in place. But one state which has not done that is Jammu and Kashmir. So even it made a last ditch effort to have the GST law passed by its legislature, but that failed. So now again the GST Legislative Assembly, Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly will meet on 4th July and try to pass the bill. So Jammu and Kashmir presently is not within the ambit of GST. Then another point mentioned is that Niti Aayog think tank, the member here, Bibek Debroy, he tried to play down the benefits of GST. He says, yes, GST will have its benefit. It will bring in GDP growth increase. It will have its benefits, but then that is an ideal GST's result. But what we are implementing is an imperfect one. So, then these are some points which have come up from an interview with a former planning commission member, which is there in the Hindu newspaper. So the benefits of GST are that it subsumes all taxes. Many central state taxes are coming together under GST. It eases the process of registering yourself for the taxation system. You don't have to register for different taxation norms, regimes. You have only one taxation system in which you have to register. That is GST. It does away with interstate transactions. There are no interstate transactions anymore. The tagline for GST is one nation, one tax. So that's what it is. And it removes the cascading of taxes because you have to pay taxes on taxes. So when you are using a raw material to manufacture a good, but that raw material manufacturer, raw material is processed, and from that processing also there's another commodity manufactured. So like for example, the most common example given of cotton. So from cotton you make the thread, from thread you make cloth, from cloth you make garment. So at every stage also the person must be paying the tax to the government for its business activity. So that tax, so when you are buying from that person, that is the tax included in what you are paying for the input for your commodity. So that input tax has to be deducted and has to be returned to you. So that input tax deduction is done in GST, but present system without GST is a cascading effect. So you have paid the tax, and when you are adding it up in your cost, and you will add up the tax, so that is a tax on the tax. So you should understand this. There is a cascading effect generally, but with GST, since it's a value addition tax, you have to pay the tax only on the value addition. That is why this cascading effect of taxes does not take place. Then the shortcomings of GST are also mentioned. What is there is that it is extremely complex because first of all the taxation rates which are there, they are large. We don't have single taxation rate as such, from 0 rated to 28% plus 28% with cess. So 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%. apart from zero rated are the various tax slabs, plus in 28% also there is commodities on which cess is charged, and that cess levy is also different. There are different percentages for cess levy too. Then for gold you have 3%. So there are number of taxation rates. So that is the complication involved, complexity involved. And another thing is that each state is treated as a separate tax jurisdiction. So that's what it was there, that for each state also you have to register yourself under the GST network also. So this is another issue. Then the other part which is mentioned is that generally in countries, various countries under GST, there are a maximum 3 rates. But that is not the case in India, but we will try to bring it down. But this is the way in which finally the federalism in the country has come together. The center and the states have come together, and we have been able to pass and implement GST. So that itself is a huge achievement considering the complexity and diversity and the different states and different political parties involved. So finally we are seeing that GST has been implemented is an achievement, but there are flaws which need to be rectified. So that is there. So there are some things which have been delayed too, specifically some of them which are mentioned here, you can see. So all this we have discussed earlier, there is nothing new in this, but you should know about them. So first of all, it said that GST network is not ready. It has not been tested completely yet. GST Suvidha providers who are to be there to assist in GST network connectivity with the general population. This Suvidha providers are also still not ready. Their syncing, checking with how they function with GST network, those testings have also not been done yet. Then e-way bill system, which is there under GST. So this e-way bill system is electronic way bill. So for all those commodities which are being transported, whose value exceed rupees 50,000. So all those commodities have to generate an electronic way bill. So we have discussed this earlier. So it is the supplier, the transporter, and the person who would be receiving this consignment. All three are involved here, and the supplier has to generate this e-way bill, and then he can initiate the transportation, and this e-way bill number has to be provided for whenever the vehicle as such is asked to stop and give the details. So this e-way bill system is there. Once it reaches its destination, then the e-way bill is completed. So this is also not in place yet. So this has been delayed. E-way bill implementation has been delayed. Then this will be through GST network only. Then another thing which has been delayed for present is tax collection at source. So this tax collection at source was for e-commerce providers. So e-commerce providers had to deduct 1% of the payments which they do to goods and services suppliers who are there on their e-commerce platform when they have to make a payment of more than 2.5 lakh. So in payment more than 2.5 lakh, 1% you deduct and then pay. So that is tax collected at source. But then this has also been delayed. Also it was required that all dealers or traders who are selling goods or services online would they have to register on GST even if their annual turnover is not very high. Because if they want this refund as such, tax collected at source should be refunded to them, then they have to register. So that provision is there, but then this aspect has been delayed by the government. This was the news on June 26th, the decision was taken. So these aspects, they are still pending. Then next news item is, how will the center ensure states' finances are not hurt? This is also nothing new. We have already discussed that compensation will be provided to the states for 5 years. So this has been promised by the government, central government, and it has been made as a provision in the GST Act also. So it's also already mentioned in the law, and this will be provided for. So for the first 5 years, compensation would be provided. So this is there. 14th Finance Commission had recommended 100% compensation for 3 years, then 75, and then 50 for the 4th and 5th year. But no, GST Council insisted, the states insisted they want full compensation 100% for 5 years, and the central government agreed. Second thing is that how would they get this compensation payment? How would it be done by the center? Or how will this provision be made for? Because it is expected. Because GST is a destination-based tax. So it is collected at the destination level. So because of this feature, it is expected that the consuming states as such would be on an advantage, and the producing states like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Karnataka, Haryana, they feel that it will be detrimental to their benefit. But then it will be only after implementation that we would come to know. And even if there are losses, an estimate is being made that losses may be there to some extent, like around 55,000 crore is expected to be the amount of losses which may take place, and this would be the compensation package which the center will have to provide to the states. So in this case, this compensation would be provided through a cess which has been imposed on goods which are taxed in the highest tax bracket of 28%. So this includes all tobacco products, coal, motor vehicles, cars, personal aircraft, yachts. All these are included here. So these will be, cess will be imposed only for the 5 years. Then it would lapse. And this amount which is collected will be used for providing compensation to various states. Right. So the cesses which are presently implemented are all subsumed under GST. Like Swachh Bharat cess, Krishi Kalyan cess are all subsumed under CST presently. So this is there. Then this is regarding the entire survey which has been done on a sample size of 10,000 micro, small and medium enterprises, like primarily retailers, about the awareness regarding GST. So you can go through this also. Then this is the entire roadmap of GST, about how GST has finally been implemented on 1st July 2017, starting from the approval of the Constitutional Amendment Bill in December 2014. So this also you can go through. We have been doing this for long now, entire 2016-17 we have been through this. Then next is Gadkari for GST on petro products. So this is regarding the Minister for Road Transport and Highway, Minister Nitin Gadkari, who has said that state governments should allow bringing petroleum products also under GST. So all petroleum products are not under GST. Petrol, diesel are outside the purview of GST. But kerosene has been brought under GST, you should know that. So here the point which has been made is that petroleum products, the taxes which are imposed on them are quite high, and states are getting those taxes. So they don't want to bring this within the GST network. But now, as it is being stated, that once GST is being implemented, it is essential that even crude petroleum, high-speed diesel, petrol, natural gas, aviation turbine fuel, all these which are presently not attracting GST should be brought under GST purview too. So GST Council has to decide. And we just discussed GST Council 2, which comprises of all finance ministers of all states and is chaired by Union Finance Minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley. So this is there. He says that if it is brought under GST, they will get more profits than losses. So this is there. Then next is border standoff. India warns of serious impact. So we have been discussing about India-China standoff, in which Bhutan is also involved. This is a tri-junction point where all three states territories are meeting. So this is Dokola, which is also known as Doklam or Donglang in Chinese. So this is a tri-junction in which Indian state of Sikkim is there, with Tibet of China and Bhutan. All three are stakeholders here. And India is presently concerned because Chinese started constructing road in this region, to which Bhutan has objected, and India has also raised its objection because this region is strategically significant for us too, because it is very close to Siliguri corridor or the Chicken's Neck, through which mainland India connects with the northeast. So if you look at the map of India, this narrow strip through which mainland India and northeast are connected is called Siliguri corridor, Chicken's Neck, which lies in Siliguri. This is in West Bengal, right? So this is there. So that's what now the demand of Beijing is, that India should withdraw the troops and then a meaningful dialogue can be initiated. And India says that India has not made any statement that troops have gone ahead, breached their point, but yes, it is stated that they went ahead and asked the Chinese authorities to stop road construction in a disputed area. So Donglang or Dokola or Doklam, this is considered as a disputed territory between China and Bhutan, but China claims no, this is not a disputed territory, this has belonged to us only historically. So this is the whole genesis of the entire dispute now. So India-China dispute has been there across the LAC, line of actual control. So we have seen disputes in Ladakh region in Jammu and Kashmir where standoffs have occurred. But now Dokola is another significant point which has arose as a region of standoff between the two armed forces. Then the next news item is not all rosy with border infrastructure. So this is actually regarding India-China border. So India has to develop its border infrastructure, and the border infrastructure is important so that military can get easy access to the border region. If tensions arise. So here we have two initiatives which have been taken actually under the previous UPA government, and they have been taken forward by present government. So one is 17 Corps. This is India's first dedicated strike corps for mountain operations. So this originally it was supposed to have 3 full divisions. Now they have been brought down to 2 divisions as such. So this has been planned. And another initiative which has been taken is regarding border road construction. So there are 73 roads which have been identified across the along the LAC, line of actual control with China, and out of these actually presently only 24 have been completed. So border road organization, and in some cases even Central Public Works Department, State Public Works Department are undertaking the construction of these roads. This had come up earlier in news also in March 2017. We have also discussed it that CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General of India, had brought forth that these border roads development is going at a slow pace. What should have been completed by 2012 has not been done till date. So this is there. Also critical bridges in the northeast are also being constructed presently, and the most prominent ones amongst them, which is the longest bridge as such, which we had discussed, 9.2 kilometer Dhola Sadia bridge, which was recently inaugurated by Prime Minister too. This reduces the distance between Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. So this is regarding the Dhola Sadia bridge too. So this is also part of the projects undertaken. So those who have been following current affairs regularly would be knowing about Dhola Sadia bridge, and even if you don't know, the keywords will give you the full details, so you don't need to worry. And this is the whole detail given here. You can see the roads constructed, the deadline, and how the deadline has been now extended to 2020, and we are said to be 10 years behind China in completing these border road projects. Okay. Then next is now a hard trek via Lipu Lake. So this is also in context of present standoff between the Indian and Chinese groups. So one point which is to be highlighted is that the Chinese army also stopped the pilgrimages. The pilgrims who were going to Kailash Mansarovar. So Kailash Mansarovar lies in Tibet, you can see here. So the region from which they can reach up here is Nathula Pass or Lipu Lake Pass. So these are the two passes. So this is in Sikkim and this is in Uttarakhand. So now since the Nathula Pass has been blocked for them by China. So here you can see in Sikkim, this is the Nathula Pass over here. And this is Mount Kailash and the Mansarovar Lake in Tibet region in China. So the Indian pilgrims, they go to this region. Two pathways are there. One is from Uttarakhand, Lipu Lake Pass, and another is through Nathula Pass. So this region has a very difficult trek. So that is why this is generally not preferred, and it is Nathula Pass which is preferred. But since this has been blocked, the pilgrims have not been allowed to go ahead by Chinese People's Liberation Army, the armed forces. That is why now from Uttarakhand Lipu Lake Pass is being used by Kailash Mansarovar pilgrims. And this Kailash Mansarovar is a region of significance, religious significance, not just for Hindus but 3 other religions too. So for Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, and even Bons, which is a religion in Tibet, all consider this region sacred. So this also we had discussed earlier 2-3 days back. The details here are given again regarding why is it significance for Hindus. So this is considered as abode of Lord Shiva by Hindus. It is considered as the place where Lord Buddha was conceived by Buddhists. It is considered as the place where the first Tirthankara, Rishabhnath, he attained moksha by Jains. And the Bon, they believe that this is the seat of all spiritual power. So all 4 religions consider this region sacred. So this is also a culture perspective to this news item. Then the next news item is Lost and Found, the tale of 2 cities. So the Department of Science and Technology has now undertaken a project in which they will send robotic vehicles into the sea near Dwarka in Gujarat and Puhar in Tamil Nadu to look for submerged structures that may point to evidence of ancient cities. So these are known to be ancient cities, but then presently, since they are near the coast, so when you see when the new population also comes up, the old population is buried underneath. So because it's near the coast, there may be such incidents also which may have occurred. So that is why these archaeological evidence is expected to be found. So here National Institute of Ocean Technology, Chennai, and even National Institute of Oceanography, Goa will be involved in this project to look for submerged structures. So this is the project. So Dwarka, you should know, it's an ancient town. It is in Gujarat and it is said to be associated with Mahabharata. It's mentioned in Mahabharata, associated with Lord Krishna. Also, it has been mentioned in Greek texts as a rich city that sank into the sea. So this is an ancient legend also. So this excavation would be undertaken here. And also the other city, Puhar. So Puhar is off the coast of Tamil Nadu, and this is also mentioned in Tamil and Buddhist texts. It is said to be the port capital of Chola dynasty also. And here also there have been stone remains which have been found, which show that there was an ancient port and temple in this region. And temples in this region, it was National Institute of Oceanography also only which had found such stones. So further research would be undertaken here. Also, another region in which another cultural aspect and such a research which has been undertaken is regarding Saraswati. So Saraswati is a prominent river which is mentioned in the Rig Veda, the holy texts as such too. So here in October 2016, an expert committee of geologists, archaeologists and hydrologists was formed, and it said that they had found evidence of the course of Saraswati river. So they said that this Saraswati river paleo channel. So the evidence of paleo channel was found. So paleo channel means, paleo means old. So paleo channel of this Saraswati means the old channel which is now underneath. So these remnants of the defunct river, they have been found, and they suggested that this Saraswati Markanda rivulets in Haryana presently are the eastern branch of Saraswati, and Ghaggar Patiali channels are the western branch of Saraswati. So this was the conclusion which this committee came to. So this is the detail given here also regarding the research which would be undertaken, robotic arms which would go down to look for submerged structures. And this is the details given here as such. And this is the remains which have been found earlier. So earlier the research which has been undertaken has found such stones and remains as such. And this is regarding the Saraswati river. So this was a news in October 2016. We have already discussed this. So this is said to be the original Saraswati river, and presently its successor is known to be Ghaggar river. So Ghaggar is called the successor of Saraswati, and it has dried up. So this is the Rajasthan region also. So presently it is said to be dried up. And this is the paleo channel which is shown. So paleo channel which goes underneath. So it's the remnant of the river which is no longer present as such. Then next is failure to spot trees crossing ropeway caused accident. So this is regarding the Gulmarg accident, cable car accident, which we saw in news that they had said, the authorities here had said that it was an act of God. Everything was in place, all checks were done. But then now a committee which has been set up, 3-member committee was set up to probe this matter, and it came to the conclusion that it was the tree line in the first phase of the ropeway that had caused the trouble. So these trees here have grown. So from 1998 when the safety tests were conducted, so there are these quail and fir trees in this region. So this tree line then was fine. But now in the past 19 years, they have acquired around 2 to 2.5 feet annually. So now they have become a threat, and this was a looming threat for long, and finally it has struck. So because of the winds, this tree as such, which affected the cable car and resulted in this accident, has come up. So this is the conclusion which they came to, and they have said that at least 60 to 70 trees have to be immediately cut by the forest department so that this safety can be brought forth again for the Gulmarg cable car. And also a fresh French team has been invited to assess the damage and issue a fresh certificate to allow this gondola service to resume. So gondola service is this cable car service as such, which will be resumed now. So this is the Gulmarg cable car accident case. Then next is India offers help to Sri Lankan northern provinces. So you should know about Sri Lanka. When you say the northern provinces, these are the provinces where the Tamil population resides. So this is the ethnicity of Sri Lanka also shown here. So you can see the major population is Sinhalese. There are Indian Tamils also. There are Sri Lankan Moor population also in purple shown, and this orange color is what is showing the Sri Lankan Tamils. So it's in the northern and some parts, eastern parts, that these Sri Lankan Tamils reside. And it is here in this region where LTT had its stronghold, and finally in 2009 it was ended too. So the civil war, Tamil civil war also came to an end, but still reconciliation has not been completed, and India has put forth its willingness to help further in partner with Northern Provincial Administration to have development initiatives in this region. Already steps have been taken because India and Sri Lankan Tamil political leadership have been engaging in this negotiations, discussions as for long, and still India says we are ready to help. So also there was a railway line which has been restored as such in this region. There have been homes which have been constructed. So India has been involved in key infrastructure projects in this region already, and now further projects, further development assistance is also what India is looking for, further partnering with the northern province. So this is a willingness shown here. Then the next news item is IS withdraws from last area of Aleppo province. War monitor. So Syria also, we are seeing that the civil war in Syria is going on, and now Islamic State militants have moved out of Aleppo province also, withdrawn from this region, is the news coming forth. So this is Syria. Yesterday we saw Islamic State was defeated in Mosul, which is in Iraq, which was a stronghold there, and another stronghold in Syria, which is a neighbor of Iraq. So this Iraq, Syria is the region where Islamic State has its major stronghold. So here you can see this is Aleppo. And again, the regions in Syria and who controls which region is shown here. Even Palmyra was under Islamic State, which has been freed now. So you can see this is May 2017 updated map. So this gives you the latest information. This is the Syrian government having control over this region. This region in gray, light gray, is in hands of rebels who are against the Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria. The dark gray region is where Islamic State is having control, and this region is where the Kurdish forces are under control. And this region belongs to Syria, but this is with Israel. This is called the Golan Heights. It's famous and you should know about it. The next is Germany legalizes same-sex marriages. So Germany now has passed a legislation which allows same-sex marriage. So this legislation has been passed by the lower house of Germany. So the upper house has to pass it and the president has to give its approval, but that is said to be just a formality. So this same-sex marriage is now legalized, but since 2001, Germany has already allowed same-sex couples to enter into civil partnerships. But then they do not have full marital rights. So now they will be allowed to have jointly adopted children also. So this will be the benefit which this legislation will provide them. And this legislation has been passed under Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany, whose political party is a conservative party. So the conservative party is against same-sex marriages, but then she allowed the party to vote, members to vote according to their conscience. She herself voted against this legislation, but this gave the freedom to various members. So members have voted in favor of same-sex marriage legislation here, that is seen. So this is there. Angela Merkel is praised. She has been the Chancellor of Germany for the last 12 years, and she has made many progressive reforms. She has taken her conservative party from orthodoxy to the center. So she has sped up Germany's exit from nuclear power. She has ended military conscription as such in Germany too. So these are the major initiatives which she has already taken, and now same-sex marriage will also be legalized. Then the next news item is top Vatican Cardinal charged with child sex offences. So this is regarding Cardinal George Bell of Vatican, who is Pope Francis's chief financial advisor. And now he has been charged by Australian police with multiple counts of historical sexual offences. And he will be arrested. He said that he will go ahead and get himself handed over to Australian authorities. So this is a long-running child sex abuse scandal which has rocked the church as such, and now this is an arrest which is imminent. So that's what it is all about. The thing is, this is called pedophiles. Pedophiles are people who abuse children sexually. So this is the abuse on which he was also investigating, and now himself is implicated in the matter. So he has vehemently denied any involvement. So this is George Bell. Then next is Hong Kong 20 years after. So Hong Kong is actually part of China, it will be completely integrated into China, but then it was only 20 years ago that it was handed back to China by Great Britain. So the 20 years completion of Hong Kong was celebrated here, and its details are provided. The monthly household income here is quite high. The population residing here is less, but the population density is also quite high. So the developments and the progress of China is being mentioned here. Then the next news item is try pitches for lower GST. So Telecom Regulatory Authority of India has made a representation to the government, and it has asked for the GST rate for telecom services. So the rate on services here, telecom services, it is 18% presently. They want it down to 5%. So this is the recommendation been put forth as such because the telecom industry is presently suffering. It is sitting on a debt of 4.6 lakh crores. So a lot of non-performing assets are also from the telecom sector, and the financial health of the industry is poor. That is why this suggestion has been made. Also, they highlight that this will finally benefit the end consumers, plus also it will help in achieving the goal of Digital India. So this is the suggestion. Also, other suggestions which have been put forth to the Telecom Commission too. The Telecom Commission is headed by the Telecom Secretary in the Department of Telecom. So here this suggestion is by try again is that USO, Universal Service Obligation. So you should know about USOF too. So this is a fund which is accumulated to provide telecom services in rural areas. So this is a Universal Service Obligation Fund, and this is provided by the government through a levy which is imposed on telecom sector. So 5% of adjusted gross revenue has to be paid as a levy to this fund, which will be utilized by the government for providing telecom services in rural areas. So another suggestion of try is that this USO levy should also be brought down to 3% from present 5%. So this is also a request. Then also they say that the spectrum usage charges which are there presently, is these spectrum usage charges should also be brought down, because earlier these were high, but now since 2010 the spectrum is being auctioned and the bid amount is quite high. So then they are already paying such a high amount to acquire the spectrum. So these spectrum usage charges should be reduced. So this is also a request coming forth. So this is the gist of the whole matter here, you can see. So here, and another point which another suggestion request which they are making is the payment which is done. So when an auction spectrum is won in a bid, the payment which has to be done by the telecom operator, they have to pay 25% or 33% as upfront charges. So then remaining is paid over a period of 10 years. So this is there, and a moratorium of 2 years is also given in between. But the recommendation which is given, that 10% of the bid amount should be paid as an initial payment, and remaining payment should be spread over 18 years. So they want more time so that installments can be paid then. So this is there. This is regarding USOF which we just discussed. So this is the corpus which is utilized to promote rural telephony. Rural telecom services are being provided here. So this is the 5% levy which is imposed as such. Then the next news item is RBI says bank funding can't be substituted. So this is the information coming from the financial stability report. So this is the biannual report which RBI releases, means twice in a year. So in this report presently it has stated that the flow of credit, if you look at the bank's share in the flow of credit in the economy, it was 50% in 2015-16, but now it has come down to 38% in 2016-17. So the credit as such generation has from banks has gone down, and it is the mutual funds, non-banking finance companies and capital market which have partly offset the corporate sector's debt requirement. So this is being seen here, but then the RBI is clearly stating that bank funding can't be substituted. So the NPA issue has to be resolved. There is no other alternative to that. Then the next news item is infrastructure output grows 3.6% in May. So this is again a monthly data which we get. We have been seeing this every month. So here again infrastructure output has grown 3.6% has been mentioned here for the month of May. So this is the information from the Index of Industrial Production, IIP. And in this IIP, you should know there are 8 core industries which are mentioned, which constitute 40.27% of weight of items. So this was also revised presently. So this is the latest data. And the 8 core industries which are there, you should clearly know them. They are mentioned here too, like coal, crude oil, natural gas, refined products, fertilizers, steel, cement, and electricity. So these are the 8 core sectors, and they constitute 40.27% weight of items in IIP. You should know this. So the theoretical part, this is the static part which you should know. Every month what data changes are taking place is not important. You can't and you should not remember all that. Then next is small savings rate cut by 10 basis points. So the government has lowered the interest rate on small savings schemes like Public Provident Fund, Kisan Vikas Patra and Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana. So these interest rates are quite high compared to the deposit rates which banks give. So that's why banks argue that people would not deposit with them, rather they would deposit in these schemes. So now the banks are flush with deposits, and we are seeing these deposit rates, these interest rates are being brought down. So this is in line with the government's initiative. They have been brought down on a regular basis. So every quarterly review takes place on these interest rates, and they have been brought down here. You can see since April 2016. So quarterly review has been mandated, and they are being brought down. So the interest rates still are high. You can see even Sukanya Samriddhi from 8.4% it has come to 8.3%, and also senior citizen savings schemes. So all these are seeing interest rates cut. For Kisan Vikas Patras, you should know these are investment schemes, small saving investment schemes, generally for the rural semi-urban population who generally invest in such Ponzi schemes. So Ponzi schemes also we have discussed earlier. That is a scam. So that they don't invest in these to get better returns are provided in these small saving schemes. So this is a government initiative. Kisan Vikas Patra here does not mean that it is only farmers who can invest in these. Anybody can invest as such, any Indian can, but then the Kisan term is here because this scheme, the corpus which is accumulated is used for farmers' welfare. So that is why it's called Kisan Vikas Patra. Then this is Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana. This is for girl child. So an account which is opened by the parents for the girl child, in which on maturity gives it gives a good interest. The deposits here also give good interest, and then it can be withdrawn when the girl matures. So this is the Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana. And the last news item is cheaper indigenous TB tests enter final validation phase. So this is regarding TrueNet MTB. So this is an indigenously developed cheaper than GeneXpert. The molecular test developed in USA. Both are molecular tests for drug sensitive and rifampicin resistant TB. So these tests, the indigenously developed test TrueNet MTB is entering into its final validation phase. Its testing will be done by ICMR now. In 2013, the preliminary test results which came forth showed that it had a sensitivity of 91% and specificity of 100%. So sensitivity means it is showing correctly, identifying those who are with the disease. So 91% sensitivity. Specificity means how many it surely showed that they did not have the disease. So that was accuracy of 100%. So this is there. So it's a battery operated handheld machine. It takes about 25 minutes for DNA extraction from the smear sample which is taken to test for the TB. And then in another 35 minutes, it does the diagnosis of TB. So since it does the DNA extraction separately, that same sample can be used for further testing also. So it has an advantage as well too, and it takes additional 1 hour for testing rifampicin resistance. So only when TB test is positive, then only testing for rifampicin resistance needs to take place. So that is the major advantage. It is quicker, cheaper, and easily handled. So here you can see the details of MTB versus TrueNet MTB versus GeneXpert is provided. So the main advantage, it says that only when samples are tested positive for TB will this test for rifampicin resistance be carried out. So this is one advantage, which is not the case with GeneXpert. Then second is that it is 50% cheaper than GeneXpert because of this diagnostic system. It is chip based. So TrueNet MTB is chip based, and GeneXpert we have seen earlier, it is cartilage based system. So this TrueNet MTB is actually environment friendly. And then TrueNet is an open system. So open system, as we just discussed, that DNA is first extracted and then testing is carried out. So this, if the test has some problems also, then another test can also be conducted with remaining test. Or even if you want to conduct some other test too, it can be conducted with the same sample. So those are the benefits. Even the amount of sample required is also less. For TrueNet MTB only 0.5 ml is required, while for Gene Expert you require 1 ml, of the sample as such. Then this, and then finally the last point which is being stated is that still TrueNet MTB is undergoing tests. So ICMR is stating that we are not planning to replace Gene Expert presently. It's only that in rural areas where Gene Expert cannot be used because it requires uninterrupted power supply and air conditioning. So that is the such places in primary health centers in rural areas we can have this TrueNet MTB in place because it is handheld, battery operated, so does not require power supply and air conditioning. So these are the main points. So that is it for today. Thank you.